The rebellion against the government was averted by the character George Washington, who dedicated himself to the Republican principle of military deference to the civilian government. Tony Williams. The way is plain, says the anonymous addresser. If war continues, remove into the unsettled country. There, establish yourselves and leave an ungrateful country to defend itself. But who are they to defend? Our wives, our children, our farms, and our property, which we leave behind us? Or in this state of hostile separation, are we to take the two first, the latter cannot be removed, to perish in a wilderness, with hunger, cold, and nakedness? If peace takes place, never sheath your swords, says he, until you have obtained full and ample justice. This dreadful alternative of either deserting our country in the extremest hour of her distress, or turning our arms against it, what can this writer have in view by recommending such measures? Can he be a friend to the army? Can he be a friend to this country? George Washington. Speech to the officers of the army at Newburgh in response to petitions for the United States military to protest in mutiny, March 15, 1783. In late 1782, General George Washington was encamped by the army at Newburgh, New York, and was deeply troubled. He had won the Revolutionary War with a stunning Allied victory over the British at Yorktown, and awaited word of a preliminary peace treaty that had been signed in France. However, the British still occupied New York City. Virginia revoked its approval of a 5% tariff, which meant that Congress had little funds. Therefore, it could not pay the officers and soldiers of the Continental Army, who were increasingly disgruntled and ready to mutiny. Washington would soon face one of his greatest crises that would test his character and the survival of the Republic. Throughout the war, as commander-in-chief, Washington had scrupulously deferred to the civilian authorities of the states and the National Congress. Even when the states and Congress did not pay the troops or offer much-needed supplies, weapons, and money, the general always supported the Republican government. He was often frustrated by the civilian government as it hampered the war effort, but he set the right precedents for civil-military relations within a republic. On December 28th, the officers sent a delegation from Newburgh to Congress with a threatening petition that read, quote, "We have borne all that men can bear. Our property is expended, our private resources are at an end, and our friends are wearied and disgusted with our incessant applications," they warned. "Any further experiments on our patience may have fatal effects," end quote, and hinted an overthrow of Congress and civilian government. A few politicians in Philadelphia saw an opportunity to use the anger to secure a more powerful central government rather than the weak government under the Articles of Confederation. For example, financier Robert Morris threatened to resign if Congress did not pass a tax to collect revenue to pay the soldiers. Representative Alexander Hamilton and others wanted to use threats of the officers to pressure Congress to adopt greater powers. Despite the woeful financial situation, Washington did not stand alone in his support of Congress. His trusted friend and general of the artillery, Henry Knox, was a patriot who refused to take the bait of his fellow officers and defended the civilian government. Knox told them, quote, "I consider the reputation of the American army as one of the most immaculate things on earth. We should even suffer wrongs and injuries to the utmost verge of toleration rather than sully it in the least degree," end quote. In February, Hamilton tried to persuade Washington to join the scheme. Hamilton wrote, quote, "The claims of the army, urged with moderation but with firmness, may operate on those weak minds, so as to produce a concurrence in the measures which the exigencies of affairs demand," end quote. Washington would have none of it, and responded that the consequences of a general mutiny against Congress, quote, would at this day be productive of civil commotions and end in blood. Unhappy situation this. God forbid we should be involved in it. He cautioned Hamilton that, quote, the army is a dangerous instrument to play with, end quote. In mid-March, General Horatio Gates, the hero of the American victory at the Battle of Saratoga in 1777, joined the conspiracy. Gates' aide penned an address to American soldiers that fanned their anger towards Congress. Quote, faith has its limits, as well as temper, and there are points beyond which neither can be stretched, end quote. Gates called the officers to a meeting to discuss the situation. The rebellion against the government was averted by the character of George Washington, who dedicated himself to the Republican principle of military deference to the civilian government. He learned about the Newburgh conspiracy and strode into the appropriately named Temple of Virtue on the symbolically fraught March 15th, the Ides of March. In the Newburgh address, he called on his soldiers to stop those who would, quote, overturn the liberties of our country and who wickedly attempt to open the floodgates of civil discord, end quote. Washington continued, quote, this dreadful alternative of either deserting our country in the extremest hour of her distress or turning our arms against it. What can this writer have in view by recommending such measures? Can he be a friend to the army? Can he be a friend to this country? End quote. His view of patriotism was rooted in Roman virtue, serving the Republic, acting with reason over passion, putting country over himself, respecting civilian authority. When the general's patriotic appeal fell somewhat flat and his audience seemed unpersuaded, Washington made a dramatic appeal based upon his love of theater. He pulled out his glasses while stating, quote, gentlemen, you will permit me to put on my spectacles, for I have not only grown gray, but almost blind in the service of my country, end quote. Most of the men present had never seen their general use eyeglasses. This simple action reminded the officers that Washington, like the men he led, had made great sacrifices for the cause of liberty. The men renounced their intent to overthrow Congress and pleaded their support for the Republican government. Washington quelled the rebellion in the army and established the right precedent for civilian control of the military. He refused to become a Caesar who overthrew the Roman Republic for his own glory and became a modern Cincinnatus who served the Republic in its hour of need and returned to his plow. The Newburgh conspiracy became Washington's finest hour. The history of American civil-military relations has seen its share of challenges from ambitious individuals. Perhaps the most notable and infamous case was President Harry Truman firing an insubordinate General Douglas MacArthur during the Korean War. In each challenge, the example laid down by Washington held, and the American Republic continued to be governed by the constitutional rule of law and popular self-rule rather than military dictatorship. This essay was written by Tony Williams. He is a senior fellow at the Bill of Rights Institute and is the author of 6 books, including Washington and Hamilton, The Alliance That Forged America, with Stephen Knott. Williams is currently writing a book on the Declaration of Independence, and he is a Constituting America Fellow. I am Janine Turner, founder of Constituting America. I and Kathy Gillespie, Constituting America's CEO, thank you for joining us for our 13th annual 90-day study. Our annual studies are entitled 90 plus 90 equals 180. History holds the key to the future because history does hold the key to the future, or as Shakespeare said, the past is prologue. Join us tomorrow right back here. Same bat channel, same bat time for those of you who are as old as I and watched Batman, the TV show. Don't forget to check out our essays on American exceptionalism. It's our study from last year. If you go to the constitutionamerica.org and scroll down, you'll see the studies and you'll see a little red button that says American Exceptionalism Study. Really good, so that we have 90 days of 90 tools in our toolbox so that we can have a really good civil civic conversation about why America is exceptional. Have a great day. We thank Amanda Hughes for championing these wonderful studies and for Bobby Rodriguez for editing these wonderful essays and sending them out there into the universe. Have a wonderful day.